Well, I'm happy to say we have a fantastic panel of guests to discuss Facebook's recent algorithm changes. I'm joined by Julio Rivera, who is Executive Director of ReactionaryTimes.com, Reese Everson, women's rights advocate and political analyst, and Aaron Menconi. Aaron's a social justice journalist and anti-war activist. And you're all very welcome to the programme. Julio, can we kick off with you? In a free market, private companies can and actually should really be seen to be making their own decisions as long as what's being done is within the confines of the law. Is Facebook actually breaking any rules here?
No, actually, one thing that's very interesting, and it happened under the radar, was on October 1 of 2020, Facebook changed their terms of service. And part of that was in an effort to go ahead and they were going to deem themselves a publisher, no longer under the CDA 230 protections that they'd enjoyed for years in America. So in a sense, they have the ability to do this, and it's not necessarily illegal. So they kind of got out in front of the CDA 230 argument by going ahead and declaring themselves a publisher before making these changes, which allowed for these algorithmic changes that I expected to happen, and I actually predicted this in a Facebook post. As of October 1st, a lot of things are going to change, and now we find out that it actually did.
Reese, social media to an incredible degree today affects how people connect and communicate, how they express and share ideas. Maybe a giant platform like Facebook addressing some of the acrimony and anger out there is what America needs right now.
Absolutely not. I don't believe it is the place of a big tech company to govern what is and is not considered to be 100% true. As a matter of fact, Mark Zuckerberg said it himself at a speech in Georgetown recently that he, as the governing person, as the creator of this platform, wanted it to be about giving people right to give their voice and connection. And unfortunately, it is not the place of the 630 people that he's hired to be fact checkers to determine what's absolutely accurate. If you think about this from a historical lens, there's power in the dissent, meaning that the actual case that decided freedom of speech was based on the letter that Martin Luther King wrote from a Birmingham jail, where he spoke out about the racial issues that African Americans were facing in this country. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court because the police in Alabama said it's not right for the news to support what Martin Luther King is saying. It's not truthful. Well, if that had happened today, Facebook would take Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail down.
Aaron, Facebook says there's too much negative news and aims to show, the language is quite peculiar, they want to show nicer news. Do you believe American society really needs to be shielded like that, essentially saying, you don't know your own mind, so Silicon Valley is here to tell you the right way to think?
Yeah, well, Reese, I want to echo what she said, and then I'll just say the problem here that we're trying to discuss today isn't whether or not it's nicer news. We know that Facebook's trying to operate in order to make money. They've been making money hand over fist in order and using this clickbait mentality. We know that they're suppressing. There may be some suppression of news that should be risen up, and we also know that they aren't taking down people who are saying the Holocaust never happened. They know that they have to go after some version of fact-checking, but we have to start with Facebook. I'm not using them. Their algorithms are manipulating people. That should be called into question. And we saw Mark Zuckerberg get up in front of Congress last year and be called on the carpet for, is he going to regulate this? And if he's not going to regulate this, then the government is going to come in here and start to see this, just like they have to oversee whether or not it's okay to post things about sexual predators and perpetrators.
Julio, that is the thing, isn't it? It's the volume of conspiracy theories reportedly shared on Facebook. Facebook, are they not doing the actual conservative right a service by getting rid of the outright fake and flamboyant lies?
Well, that's one part of it. But another thing that you have to remember, too, is there's many instances in which they go ahead and take factual stories down. What was the deal with the New York Post story about the Hunter Biden laptop? I mean, if you tweeted about that, your tweet would be taken down. If you posted on Facebook, you were posting with some sort of a disclaimer. But this is something that, the Biden campaign had never denied. And that, a lot of these documentations and a lot of the conversations were corroborated by people like Tony Bobolinsky. But these social media platforms were taking it down, or either that or putting a disclaimer on it, because they ultimately want to function as the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. The right, these conspiracies and this white supremacy garbage and all this other stuff has nothing to do with the conservative side of the aisle in the GOP. So they're not, that doesn't necessarily do anything to service the Republicans. What the issue is where truthful stories were being put disclaimers on, and then that hurt Trump leading up to the election, because they couldn't talk about things like Hunter Biden accepting foreign payments and then being repositioned basically to do that with Joe Biden's victory.
Yeah, Reese, America has always championed its stance on free speech. Do you think that algorithms end up cutting out media with a different narrative to the mainstream? Is that the big issue here?
That's part of it, in the sense that when you have an algorithm that is created by human beings to determine what's true, what has veracity, and what doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't always get it right. And then you have it's almost created with a bent towards silencing things that, we may not like. And that's not the basis of what we should be silencing people on. To say that, freedom of speech has its limits when it begins to infringe on the rights of another person. You can't use your speech to hurt someone. I can say I don't like people of a certain color, but I can't incite violence against those people. And so what we have to know about Facebook is that there are actual groups calling for terrorism, domestic terrorism. There are white nationalist groups calling for harm to people of color. And we have to be vigilant to make sure that those groups don't have a right to continue in this public space.
Okay, we're just running out of time, but Aaron, I want to get this point in, and it's a big what if, but let's suppose the Trump team actually does manage to prove fraud on the level being spoken about. Is Facebook then downplaying a serious issue or even crime that it really had no right to prejudge? Aaron?
Wow. Thanks for the big what if closing. Facebook is not suppressing the right. Facebook is a business operation. Facebook is going to do, to your question, whatever it can do in order, and we've seen this in the New York Times story, in order to further its business opportunities. Whichever government it is, there's going to be some control over what the media is saying. That's unfortunate, and it's up to people in order to educate themselves, which was the initial intent to have this democratization through social media, but it has been corrupted by the super rich, and that's why we see whether or not it's mainstream news looking like they're a propaganda for the state-run media, just like we would see in China or other places. We have to be smarter than that and fight together as a people. And not be divided, and that's what social media is trying to do to us.
Okay, we can actually just get the final thoughts of Reese and Julio finally, but if I can put you within that wrap-up, has social media, Reese, effectively turned into a media outlet itself with political leanings or bias?
Unfortunately, when you have a platform where politicians are allowed to run ads and allowed to use it as a platform for political speech versus just individuals coming together to collectively share their thoughts, to debate. I mean, even during the debate, it's important that we share one-to-one with each other. And when we're not allowed to do that, then social media is no longer serving its purpose.
Julio?
Yeah, I disagree with the whole narrative of Facebook is only out for its business interests, because Reactionary Times, we used to be able to put up ads, and we purchased thousands of dollars in ads. And in the last 2 years, we haven't been able to purchase anything. None of the ads get approved. This whole switch to being a publisher, and it goes ahead and goes against the idea of it being a business model and a free and clear kind of a terrain for people to put all different types of information. Facebook is taking an editorial position. They're going to alienate people, and it will hurt their business. So that's a lie. That's just to protect themselves, to hide their political purpose.
Listen, it's a very interesting chat, and we could have gone on for quite some time, but very good to hear your thoughts. Julio Rivera, editorial director for reactionarytimes.com. Reese Everson, women's rights advocate and political analyst, and also Aaron Menconi. Aaron's a social justice journalist and anti-war activist. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And that is where we leave the news update for now, but stay close, since our documentary, The Ones Who Search, begins in moments. Catch it right after the break.